Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, members. Thank y'all for your attention. It's a little bit of a smaller room, but welcome. Thank you for being here. Thought about it all morning, members. I will tell you, very excited about what we have on the agenda today. I'd like to state that I'm the first believer, and what I mean by that is your efforts, your knowledge, you're digging in, you're trying to make a difference for the children of the state of Georgia, and I think you're going to be able to do that today. I think you're going to be very interested in hearing what we're working on. We are working on safety today. We are working on literacy, and I just appreciate the knowledge and the effort of the group that is in this room to make these decisions for our state. Let me begin. Chairman Chokas, I'm going to ask you again, if you would you open us in prayer? What number are you down there?
Thank you, sir. Well, good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father in heaven, please watch over us as we deliberate on these issues that affect not only the citizens of the state, but our children. We need to be careful and be watchful, and we need to be protective of our children each day. Please give us the wisdom that we need and the courage of character to go forward with it. Please protect us as we travel. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chairman. Now, remember our goals: safety, literacy, great policy. And what I'll charge with you today is let's go to work. I am going to switch the schedule a little bit due to some meetings that are around, and chairman that needs to be at a meeting. I'm going to move up on the agenda here. Chairman Corbett, your bill. Would you come up, state your number, and begin presenting to the committee your bill? Yes. I think I got you.
Okay, we're ready, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 340, LC 491385S. Should be the version we're working off of. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, like I said in the subcommittee, every year 50% of our new teachers that come into the system, they leave within the first 5 years of starting the teaching profession. So we've done a lot of stuff, trying to reduce some mandatory testing and stuff they have to do to help with some issues. We've looked at the evaluation system on teachers, and I think the Department of Ed is doing a pilot program on a different evaluation system. I believe possibly this year they're looking at doing that. But what we're doing in this bill, working with educators first, the Superintendent's Association, the Principals Association, GAE, Page. We came up with some language, and it's request that the teachers is high on their priority that will help give them planning time to make sure that that's protected. So what we're doing in this bill, now we just defined in lines 14 through 19 what planning period is. We defined it. Then in line 30, any teacher in kindergarten through 12th that works more than half the periods in a day, they shall be provided a daily planning period. It's what we're doing there. But if you'll turn to the last page, in extreme circumstances, we do have a provision in there where they can be pulled from that planning period if needed, 1 day a week. So we put that in there. And then when necessary to ensure the safety of students and staff, if is also in there they could do it for more than 2 days a week. If it's for a safety issue, they can still do that. And I was working with the superintendent's principals to get that language in there. And then 51 and 52, Mr. Chairman, I think is probably to me one of the most important pieces of the bill, and that's the during this planning period, we encourage the teachers to review the school safety plan. Keep that in the forefront of their mind. And, every day we should be thinking about safety, working on that to keep it in the forefront where, if some issue does come up, we're prepared. And that's what we're doing with the bill. I stand for questions, or I appreciate your favorable support.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this bill. You do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Stand by here. Number 8, is that
Yeah.
Representative Evans?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman, for bringing this bill. I just want to compliment you on this bill. When I heard from the teachers, the Superintendent's Advisory Council of Teachers, who are all our Teachers of the Year, and they were talking about issues that were important to them, and protecting planning period was one of their #1 priorities. And I remember I thought, well, I don't know if we can do that. So I'm so glad we can do that. So thank you so much for this bill.
And I appreciate that comment, and I appreciate all the ones involved in getting to a point where everybody could something we could agree on. So thank you.
Couple more questions. Number 14, Vice Chair Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this bill. As we know, teachers work a lot more hours than when they're compensated, and we are losing them in droves. So, good bill. I didn't sit in on the subcommittee, so I may be asking some basic questions here. I didn't see. Is it like a 30-minute time period, or what's the actual planning period?
It'd be the length of one period of a
Whatever
day.
that length of a period is.
Whatever that's 50-minute is standard. I think.
Well,
Yeah,
let me assist in answering that. It depends on what type of schedule you have. If you have block
that's
scheduling
right.
versus,
The block could be longer.
period day. So
And then
the school system will determine that.
One more question, if I may. Does this take away from instructional time that my kids would otherwise be receiving, or is this?
No, it would not. The teachers get the planning period, but sometimes they get pulled. And the epidemic we just had really exacerbated that problem. But it was necessary to do that, and in the bill we still allow that to happen in extreme conditions. But no,
So the number of instructional hours they would receive.
No, we were not affecting instructional time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Number 9, Representative Chairman Chokus, is that you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Number 10, who is number 10?
I guess I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back to the block versus regular schedule, like a traditional schedule. So for a block period, if you teach 2 out of the 4 blocks, you would not get a planning period, right?
It just has to be more than halftime, the way I understand that.
So if you teach 3 of the 4 blocks, you would have a planning period of a certain amount of time. And so let me give you an example. You teach the first 3 blocks, the 4th block you don't teach. Are you saying you'd be compensated for that 4th block? So you basically become a full-time employee, or do we need to define 30 minutes again?
Mr. Chairman, can I help
Yes,
you
please.
out with that again for a second?
I'm
I
gonna follow.
don't think I understand the question, Representative, that the system determines the planning periods for the teachers. In high school, we use the block schedule that we talk about, and there will be 3 blocks usually built, depending on if you're a 4x4 block or a modified block, but you'll get what would be 1 block is a planning, which would be basically a 2-hour period in time for those teachers, and he's securing that 2-hour period in time in this bill.
Which they already get. It's just not secure. Is that
Just
What's not secure?
the planning period? They are entitled to that planning period now, but sometimes it doesn't happen. They can use it for other.
Yes, it could be pulled away for different reasons, and you still stated it for safety in here
that's
that
right.
that can occur in 1 time a week, but generally that section is secured for that teacher to do her needed planning during the day to prepare for her classes.
I guess follow-up question, maybe I need to get this offline, but if there's, say, 3 blocks, and you are working the first 2 because you come back as part-time, you come back as part-time, you decide to work two of the 3 blocks. Now, if you're guaranteed that one block, the last block, you now technically are a full-time employee. So are we adding time to that person's day by giving them a compensated block?
Yeah, part-time is part-time, and that course planning would be negotiated by the system. You know, most systems, if you're part-time, you do not get planning. You come work the 3 periods of the day. So, and I agree with you, Representative Wilkinson, that I'd go offline with him.
Yes.
For a minute. For time purposes, let us keep moving on. Representative Evans, did you have another question? Okay. And number 6 is that Townsend, Representative Townsend.
Chairman Corbett, thank you for this bill. I was going to let you know, just as a former principal and teacher and superintendent, this kind of helps assure the teacher do get planning periods when they can, because at times we are short of staff as a principal, and you do what you have to do, but the teachers understand that, and I think it's a good bill.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, do I have a motion to approve House Bill 340? So move Chokis, second. Second, Vice Chair. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Good bill, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Mr. Chairman. All right, let's keep the ball rolling because we are under a time gun here. We'll start at the top of the agenda there with HB 538. Representative Ballard. Read your number to us, Representative Ballard, and then present your bill, please.
Okay, I've got LC 491404S.
Correct.
Got that. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who asked me questions to help me make this bill stronger. We've had input from parents, from all of the education groups. Representative Wade has walked me through a lot of things and helped me talk through and bounce ideas off, and I've had wonderful conversations with a lot of you in this room, especially Representative Evans. And I will say that everyone in this room is committed to literacy. I have no doubt of that and what's good for our children. So this bill does 3 things. It gets our students reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. The end of 3rd grade marks the point when our kids transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And reading on grade level by the end of the 3rd grade is one of the biggest predictors of success in later life. You are more likely to graduate on time or graduate at all if you read on grade level by the end of 3rd. You're more likely to be gainfully employed. You are less likely to go to jail. But right now, between 36 and 56%, depending on how it's measured, of our state's kids are not reading on grade level. And that is awful. We need to do better for our children. The second thing this bill does, it gives teachers and students tools in their toolkit. Right now, and I've heard from some elementary school teachers, they are not being taught how to teach children to read. So when they get in the classroom, they are flying blind. This program, and it's called the Science of Reading, and it has many different, there are many different curricula sets that go along with Science of Reading. It's evidence-based. It's based on scientific principles that are foundational principles that teach kids to read. And people hear Science of Reading, they think it's some new buzzword. It is not. It is the way probably everyone on this committee was taught to read. It is going back to phonics instruction. It is going back to teaching children that each letter has a sound and that helps them learn to sound out words so that when they go beyond 3rd grade, they can sound out ever harder and harder words as they go through their education. So the teachers are given the tools to teach this, and the kids are given the tools to go farther in their education. Now you'll see in the bill there are some fancy science-y sounding words, and science-y is one of my own words. But don't let that fool you. It is really, we are not reinventing the wheel. We are going back to the teaching of literacy, the way that helped us through generations. It's the way that put man on the moon. It's the way we have led the world in scientific advances because we taught our kids to read in this way for generations. And we've just lost our focus a little bit and have gone kind of astray in our teaching practices. The third thing that this does, it outlines a timeline to get this done in Georgia schools. I'm very committed to having a timeline in there because, as we know, if we leave things open-ended, sometimes it just never happens. So I'm very committed to having that timeline so that we have a roadmap to follow and we don't just kick the can down the road because, quite frankly, we cannot afford this as a state. We are failing our children, and we have to stop doing that. So I will yield for questions.
Sciencey.
Sciencey.
That's a good one for me there. I'm gonna remember that one for you, Representative. Good bill. Appreciate your efforts here, and I've just got a couple of questions to start with. I know you worked very hard with the individuals out in the audience today and in detail.
Everyone is committed to fixing this problem.
Awesome. I mentioned about first believer in this committee. I'm the first believer, too, that we can teach every child in this state to read and get on grade level by third grade. And it's going to take a mammoth effort and a lot of flexibility, but I appreciate your effort in trying to tackle on that task that we can do this for our children. And I see some questions, so let me pass on. I'll try to get them by the order I saw them. Who is 17? Representative Carter.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairwoman. So first, off the bat, I absolutely support this bill. Support early literacy. And part of the research when, and I think you guys probably saw some of the same research, that in the schools, in the districts or the states where we saw higher literacy, what was also included was the literacy coaches. And I think you spoke to maybe your original version had it and we took it out. And I don't know how much of a difference having those literacy coaches made in ensuring that the literacy level went up, because the very high performing states do have them. So if you could address that. And in our subcommittee, you did mention that the cost would be borne at the local level. However, with this being such a priority for Georgia and we're so close to the bottom, is the opportunity there to really add some funding to ensure that we successfully increase the literacy rate here in Georgia? So I guess I had two questions.
That was two questions. So the first one about literacy coaches, we did take that out because there are not enough literacy coaches to go around. That was a cost factor. And so, I'm looking, and not to call anybody old on this committee, but I am guessing we all learned to read without a literacy coach. So it is entirely possible that generations of people can be taught to read without a literacy coach. But what we're going to do is, that's why we are training all of the teachers to teach this. All of the elementary schools will be adequately trained to teach this. And it won't take a lot of training because it's such a common sense practice. I think once they get the training, the light bulbs will come on for them and they will be able to teach our kids no problem. Again, I know that my kindergarten teacher was not a literacy coach. She was just a sweet kindergarten teacher who taught us to read because she recognized that as her number one job, was to teach us to read. The second part, funding, and the districts purchase curriculum and reevaluate their curriculum and purchase their curriculum, different things, every year. In fact, there is a process built into this that if they have a literacy program that they think already fits in there that's not that doesn't come out on the list that is put out by the state, they can appeal and tell why their literacy program already fits this and that they don't have to purchase a new one. So I think, and then, if the department decides they need funding at some point down the road, they can request that as we go forward. But I think that since literacy should be our number one priority, I think that every district will make the priority to find that money in their budget to get our kids reading.
Okay, thank you, Representative Carter. Let's go to 14, Vice Chair Hilton.
Thank you to my seatmate for bringing this fantastic piece of legislation. I also want to thank the advocates on the dyslexia piece right here in the front row. That is one of my favorite components of this bill, so I appreciate you including that as well. Two quick questions. One easy, one may require some opinionated. Universal reading screener, if you could define what that is, just kind of in your own words. And then the second question would be, we've got a Department of Education who I assume, is laser focused on literacy. Where did we go wrong? Why the need for this?
Okay, a universal reading screener is a fancy term for a test that everybody takes so that all of our kids can be assessed in the same way. You don't want one school district to use a different thing, because then our kids won't be measured adequately. So it's just a fancy term that we like to use. How we went astray, and this is just my opinion, lots of times in education we see shiny things and we chase the shiny thing because it looks really pretty, but it's sometimes at a detriment to our children. And I taught for a number of years, and I will tell you that when the teachers would recognize the shiny thing before other people would, and we would sit in faculty meetings and just sigh and say, well, we won't worry about this. This too shall pass. And most of us ended up just teaching the way we wanted to teach anyway. So I think that's how we went astray. We simply just started chasing shiny things.
Well, thank you for bringing us back to the basics.
Thank
you. Okay, well, let's continue to work through the numbers here. Let's go to number 2. Is that Representative Howard?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question follows up on Representative Carter. The funding, of course, is an issue, but more concerning would be the timeline and the funding. We're talking about July of this year and December of this year. Would that give these boards enough time to do this? And I'm absolutely in favor of this bill. In fact, I got a Hooked on Phonics box in my house now.
Yes.
that my children learned on. So I think I'm in favor of it, but I just wonder, is that enough time for these boards to implement?
I think it is. I worked with Gail, and at their suggestion, I moved the dates back 6 months from the original set of dates. So I think, the danger is we don't want to push because every time we push this down the road, more of our children are not reading. And that's the danger. We need to get a move on with this. I feel very strongly about that.
Okay, Representative Howard, let me keep working then. Number 4, is that Representative Glaze?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, I want to say thank you for bringing this great bill and continue to move our kids forward in literacy. What I'm strongly concerned about is that the teachers we have in the classroom now have not gone through standards of teaching science, and that's, the science of reading. And so coaching is very, very important when they've not had this kind of training. And so I know you've taken it out, and maybe there might be an opportunity as we assess. They're gonna need the importance of having a peer to help them through if they've never taught the reading of science, the science of reading. So I just would hope that we have some support to the teachers. So that's one. And then two, I certainly know that Fulton County is the county I represent. It's a huge county. And so thank you for pushing back 6 months so that the funding piece could be in place. And I certainly would hope that if we hear back from rural counties who need the assistance, that we really open the door for that, some kind of way of putting it in to the new budget that's coming in '24. Thank you for
And
this bill.
Let me say to this, when you just do a simple Google search for science of reading, there are so many resources that are easy to understand. I think that any teacher could spend a good afternoon just looking and find out that they know more than they think they do about teaching this way. It is all over the place. In fact, almost all the other states in our region, Mississippi, Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, Virginia, have adopted this. Mississippi adopted it a decade ago, and they have seen great gains in their reading proficiency.
Let us keep moving, and let me remind representatives that we need to move quickly this morning due to the fact that it's opening up. Our session will be opening up at 10 o'clock, whether we're done or not. All right, number 5, Representative Parrish.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill, because I feel like it's something that we've needed for such a long time. Reading is fundamental. The allocation of funds is what the General Assembly is assigned to do.
Mm-hmm.
That is our number one position. So I'm a little bit concerned that with the funding of this, and how are we going to really push that issue? I know you said it's going to come down to the locals, but they tend to sometimes not be able to find the money. And also wondering if GAE has endorsed this bill, as well as Chairman Hilton also asked about the universal reading screeners. I'm not clear what those are. So there's
A universal reading screener is just like you would choose a paragraph for everybody to read, and everybody would read that, so that all children in Georgia would be reading the same paragraph to assess their ability.
Oh, it's not a person.
Well, no. It's like a test. It's like it's an assessment.
All right.
And that, can be in the bill in line 101, universal reading screeners shall be made available for use free of charge to public schools and local school systems if needed. And there is a way, for if a public school or local school system, this is 152, line 152, has a lack of sufficient funding, they can be provided with instructional support, and the Department of Ed can help them find some money in the grant, with a grant process or whatever. So there is, some way. There are ways to get this money if we need it.
Okay. And GAE?
We do not have endorsements yet, although I have listened to every interested party's concerns, and we have worked with them.
Thank you.
Let's look at part of your bill, if you would, for me, Representative Ballard. Let's look at line 73. And just knowing what DOE does and how they build the standards for ELA, the timeline there of December of 23 is pretty short. Would you accept a friendly amendment to that date that you have there to push that out, so that the DOE has a time to set the standards and get the ELA standards in place before we purchase this materials?
What date do you have in mind?
good number you want to say by the end of this school year coming up? Let's think about that for a minute. Yeah. Push your button if you would, and we'll let you comment in. Floor leader. Let me answer your question maybe with Representative Wade's comment. Representative Wade.
So just for my clarity, and I've had some conversations with folks, my understanding is DOE is going through that ELA process right now, and most of their plan is for the big five areas: phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, et cetera, are going to be a part of that process. And I think, if my information's not incorrect, and I think we've got a State Board of Education member here that I can see, and there may be others, that process will happen before June of this year. And I don't know that, respectfully to the chairman, I really think December 1st is an acceptable timeline for them based on the current timeline of their ELA adoption, unless you're aware of a different expectation of when that's going to be adopted. If it is later in the fall, then I would agree with the chairman's recommendation. But if it's about to happen before June 30, then I would think a December 1st would be acceptable. But I don't know what you may know that I don't know.
Let me make this comment, and I'll look at our legislative council. Could we put a June 30th date or sooner? And if they could work through getting the materials and the standards set, then this could move quicker. If not, what I don't want to do is pin the State Board of Education to a timeline, or this trying to see or not being able to be flexible if those standards were not set and rolled out and looked at, and then the material, we're purchasing material that wouldn't line up with those standards. And I'm just asking a question if we could push the date out, but also allow the date you're pushing for, in the sense of if we can get it done with the DOE.
The only suggestion I would make, Mr. Chairman, would be that if the online 73 by whatever date you say just establishes that date as the end deadline, so any date before that date is acceptable. If the committee wants to express its kind of encouragement to move faster, then we might say as soon as practicable, but no later than. And that way, that's a way to communicate that don't use this later date as a reason to delay. We just want to give you a time to make sure you can get it done. So 73 could say as soon as practicable, but not later than whatever date you want your new languages.
That's fine.
Representative, are you amenable
I am
to
amenable to that.
friendly amendment?
Yes.
That gives us an opportunity to deal with any hiccups, slowdowns, and also for the chance for the teachers to kind of roll out the standards and then get the material. Push your button down there if you would, Chairman. We'll
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I was just asking Legislative Council, Mr. Chairman, line 83 also contemplates a similar time frame where the board shall approve a list of universal reading screeners, whereas above we talk about high-quality instructional materials. I feel like, Mr. Chairman, those are somewhat related. So if we were to make those changes, if I could also encourage the chair to consider part of his friendly amendment to include both lines 73 and addressing lines 83 with all questions that I would, that's the extent of my legal knowledge.
Okay.
You'll have to turn to Legislative Council to figure out where I messed that up.
Good
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
recommendation, and I would accept that as long as the
I'm amenable to that as well.
representative
Thank
of the
you.
bill, author of the bill, would. Okay, Legislative Council, could you read let's go to line 73. What could you read that to us?
Yes, sir. And what is the date that you have in mind?
I'm thinking you've got July 1 down on 95 at the bottom of the page. And I'm trying not to affect all the dates in here, but do we want to stick with July 1 or do June 30th? It's 1 day
It's
difference.
a 1 day, so
I'm just sticking in line. We'd say July 1.
So then on line 73, by December 1st, 2023 would be replaced with as soon as practicable, comma, but not later than July 1st, 2023, comma. 2024. Thank you. Yes. Moving in the wrong direction.
How about line 79?
Are you wanting to do it on, my understanding was that line 83 was the other change?
What I'm trying to do is pay attention that we have not affected the date with our change above it of the July 1, 2023. Okay. Okay. So we have not affected that one then. All right, let's go to 83. Oh, to make July 1 to January 1st?
mhm.
Okay. The recommendation there is January then from the July. So we're pushing back is what we're doing as we're walking down this page. Correct. 2024. All right. On to 83. What is the date that we feel appropriate there for those reading screeners? July 1st, 2024. Okay. Okay. Stand by just 1 second.
Mr. Chairman, I do think that would impact line 95. The change to line 79 probably necessitates a change to line 95. January 1st.
Okay.
In fact, it may need to be later than January because the provisions there in subparagraph 2A establish the qualifications for the universal reading screeners, and then down at 95 is the department publishing the universal reading screeners.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially requiring them to publish their rule with respect to the final.
Well, it makes sense to push that 6 months also.
Would that be January 1, 2025 then?
Correct. All right, let's give a moment here for Chairman Dubnik to. Oh, yeah, correct. You're right. To amend. Okay, stand by there. I'm going to let a couple more questions go, and then we'll come back to this here. Number 6.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to make a motion as well.
Okay, number 9.
Parliamentary inquiry, sir. Shouldn't we make a motion to do pass before we amend it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good.
Thank-
Thank you very much for that. All right, and seeing no other questions here, very good, Bill. Let's. I will entertain a motion of due pass.
So moved. Second.
So moved, Chairman Dubnik, and seconded by Floor Leader Wade. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. What? Oh, yep, you're right. Let me back up. Wait, back up. That's my fault, guys. I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second now. Let's talk about the amendment. I'm going to turn to you. I saw you writing it down there, Chairman Dubnik. Do you want to read what you have to us?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adopt changes to lines 73, 79, 83, and 95, and I would request for the record for those of our friends watching at home that Legislative Council be allowed to come to the podium and read those updates if it would so please the chair.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I will make a motion to adjust the appropriate lines per Mr. Walker's recommendations here.
Thank you. And as a clarification, with each of these changes, would you like them to be prefaced with as soon as practicable, but not? Okay.
Yes, sir, I would.
So on line 73, by December 1st, 2023, would be replaced by as soon as practicable, comma, but not later than July 1st, 2024. On line 79, by July 1st, 2024, by July 1st, 2023 would be replaced by as soon as practicable, comma, but not later than January 1st, 2024. On line 83, by December 1st, 2023 would be replaced by as soon as practicable, comma, but not later than July 1st, 2024. And on line 95, by July 1st, 2024 would be replaced by as soon as practicable, but not later than January 1st, 2025.
So moved.
So moved in second. I see a couple of questions that have popped up here, so let me go to those if I can. Representative Glaze.
Okay, on line 135, we still have December 1st, 2024 as the local boards and governing body shall have this up on the website. Should we not also include the update on 135?
That, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Representative, that is 12/1 of 24, which would be later than the lines 73, 79, 83 have been amended, and is only 30 days prior to the change in line 95. So respectfully, again, turning to Legislative Council, I would suggest that that date may remain in effect and is not being affected.
And only add to that the provisions there starting at 135, the requirements for the local boards of education deal with the approval of the instructional materials.
Correct.
Not the reading statement itself. So I don't think there's going to be an intersection of those two things.
Okay,
Right.
so the report will not. It starts with the report and the analysis of it. So you still think that's enough time? Okay.
All right, thank you. Number 11, Representative Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Off of the same logic, my question goes to 116 date. She mentioned 135. 162's date, 180's date, and 210. Are we impacted with those dates based off of these said changes? So 180 appears to be the closest one that may need an adjustment.
So far, I have not seen a reason to change the first two. Let me continue to look at 180 here. I'm looking at line 180, and that one makes sense to push back.
I think, yes, Mr. Chairman, line 95, the new date would be January 1, 2025 for the department to publish the reading screeners. And line 180 is the school rollout of those screeners, so that would need to be after
Correct.
January 1, 2025, depending on how much
Correct.
takeoff time you can have.
I think so. Representative Cox, thank you. I do think 180, and we ought to include that date move in the amendment, if that is okay, and if you would step back to the podium when you get that. Yes, it should be fine too.
Yeah, the line 210 deals with just training program, which is
Correct.
not specifically tied to any instrument. So in addition to the items already included in the amendment, if it's going to be entertained as the same amendment, then, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that on line 80, beginning July 1, 2024, would be replaced with, if you want the same urging language, as soon as practicable, but not later than, the trigger date, Mr. Chairman, is January 1, 2025, so it would just be how far after January 1, 2025 would you want the locals to have to get the information from the Department of Education, which is when they would be required to publish their list of universal reading screeners. And then line 80 talks about when the public schools would need to start kind of using those.
Is that line 180 or line 80?
180.
180. Okay, 180. And
So-
it makes sense, Representative, to move it 6 months past that date that they would get that. So
In that case, on line 180, beginning July 1, 2024, would be replaced by as soon as practicable, but not later than July 1, 2025.
correct. Makes sense. And that's the beginning of a new school year, starting July 1 and have closed out the previous school year. Okay. So I think we've vetted the dates all for an adjustment, but I think much better timeline on this amendment. We have one more question before we entertain a vote here on this amendment. Representative Wade.
So appreciate the chair. Let me, I just want to make a statement, and I completely appreciate the process, and I also appreciate the deference that the committee is allowing for folks to apply and to allow our Department of Education and other agencies to work. But I do want you to acknowledge one thing. That's an entire school year. I have a sense of urgency about this because I have a child that was a kindergartner during COVID. And there are approximately 200,000 others of those children. That's the class of 2032. I respect everyone on this committee. I hope that every agency will have a sense of urgency to beat these timelines. Those kids deserve it. So with the strongest urging that I can give, get to work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Floor leader, and I agree. Let's tackle it sooner than later. All right, having exhausted our questions here for this amendment, let's vote on this amendment if we can. Do I? Okay. All right. If you are in favor of this amendment, would you say aye? Aye. If you are opposed, like sign. Boy, moved one date and caused all kinds of trouble, didn't we? All right, so we've got the amendment completed. to it, and thanks Legislative Council for quickly looking over that for us. Let's vote on this bill. We're very excited to get to this point, Representative, and
Yes,
your
we
efforts and everybody's efforts in the room here. House Bill 538. We have a motion to do pass. We have a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. That carries. Congratulations. Great work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative. We are going to keep rolling because of time, person. We're going to need to move quick. Let's see. I think up next is House Bill 537. Representative Evans, if you would come up to the podium and present your bill, please. Okay. Okay. Oh, you need one. You got him. Representative Evans, if you would read your LC number to us, so we're sure we're working off the same one you're working off of.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm working on House Bill 537, LC 491371S.
That's correct. Thank you. We'll turn
Great.
it over to you.
Great. And I do have some amendments that I will be proposing too, but I'll go ahead and get started to tell you. I just want to say good morning, colleagues. I'm so glad to present to you this bill, House Bill 537. It's the Literacy Instruction Certification Bill, and this is a companion bill to Representative Ballard's bill. This does address the issue that she has alluded to in that, unfortunately, and I provided an article to you that I think kind of summarizes what's a synopsis of what's happened in our education system, that unfortunately we've gotten off track in teaching our teachers how to teach reading in our educational schools. And so we cannot control and dictate what they teach in the schools, but we can control how they are certified in our state. And so I just want to echo, I told some of you about when I first was on this committee in 2018, when the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education told us about the level of reading proficiency in our state, how taken aback and horrified I was at that. So 2/3 of our children are not reading proficiently by the end of third grade. And so and then I just want to flash forward to summer of 2021 when there was a group called Science for Georgia. They are very concerned because they want to make sure we have a literate workforce for the science industry in our state. And so they had a series of workshops about literacy over the summer. And out of that, Representative Matthew Gamble and I attended a roundtable, and at that roundtable, out of all the issues we discussed, and there were many of them about what we could do, we chose to work on literacy. And so the result of this bill is the result of working with groups all across the state. I want to say there are many good people doing good work in literacy, but there is a need to tie pieces together, silos together. Our reading screener bill is an excellent step, but this is an important first step to making sure that our teachers are being certified based upon, as Representative Ballard called it, science of reading. In my legislation, we call it evidence-based learning instruction. And I just want to, they're both the same. They're going back to phonics, but it's a little bit more than that. But that's the emphasis there, and that's what we've gotten away from. So, and I just have a quick personal story. I'll just say I have three children, one 30, 32, and 27. And my two boys, the 30 and 32-year-old, in first and second grade, had a master teacher. And and she included phonics as well as other learning things, but she really taught my boys to decode words. And then my daughter's 27, she had and thus they became, good readers. But my daughter was, she had the fun, energetic young teachers, the yoga teacher, and she did all sorts of wonderful things, but she did the expressive spelling and the writing journals, and it was a problem. And basically she couldn't spell at all. She was not caught in the school system. I had to go take her for private testing. She was diagnosed with a dyslexia problem. I did get a tutor for her after school, sent her to the Skank School for summer school, and then she had an intervention in school in language arts for a year and a half, and then she got the tools that she needed. But the tragedy of this is that if we teach our children to read the first time correctly, we should not have as many students with dyslexia. So we can talk more about all that, but I'll just wanted to share that personal story. So if you just look at the bill, it's a very simple bill. It's a basic first step, and this does address. Chancellor Perdue has talked about this problem, and he said that we need, we can't control. We are local control. We don't dictate what our schools of education teach, but we can control how their certification process goes. So we can control the standards the Professional Standards Commission uses to test teachers. And we do need an ecosystem from literacy from birth through third grade, really through adulthood. But so this bill does include DECAL as well. So I'll just walk you through the bill really quick. In section 2, we talk about DECAL. And Mr. Chair, I do have an amendment that I've gotten from DECAL. How should I handle that? Should I tell you what we've agreed to with the child care centers now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Just begin with that, and we'll
Okay.
come back to.
All right. Well, then, if
working
everyone
on
can look at the amendment sheet that I passed out, if you look at lines 32 through 36, this is language we've agreed to. Beginning July 1st, 2025, the department shall require teachers in all programs licensed or commissioned by the department. To spend 20% of their annual training requirements on developmentally appropriate evidence-based literacy instruction, provided that the department may waiver such requirements for teachers who have been deemed by the department to be proficient in such literacy training or primarily work with children younger than 2 years of age. So anyhow, that's our amendment. That's how we want that language to read, and that's something that the DECAL had already approved the amendment you have before us, but now the child care workers have asked for that. So, and they provided testimony as to that at our subcommittee meeting. And then in section 3, first of all, I do want to talk about this definition of evidence-based literacy instruction on lines 54. The acquisition of language, phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics and spelling, fluency, vocabulary, oral language comprehension, the intersection of writing and reading, and the utilization of literacy instruction methods in other subjects such as science and history. So, and then it defines all these other things. Yes. Okay, and then we walk through just what are we asking in our public for our Professional Standards Commission? What kind of standards are we doing with that? And if we look at lines, 79 through 85, there was some concern by the schools that we had said 25% of for recertification. Excuse me, I need to back up. I'm sorry. First of all, we agree in lines 87 through 89 that on the GACE test, the requirements for teacher certification shall be aligned with this developmentally appropriate evidence-based instruction. So that's the overall thing. But for renewal, for the certificates for renewal, they expressed concerns with 25%. How would 25% be measured? Different school systems would measure it different ways. And so we agreed to this language, just saying annual implementation of professional learning requirements shall be focused on developmentally appropriate evidence-based literacy instruction for renewal. And this is for the pre-K through 5. And what they told me, I was saying, well, I want to make sure it's measurable. I want to make sure we're really reaching people. And they said, well, 25,000 teachers a year go through recertification. And so you're ensuring that 25,000 teachers a year are being, will be, be that's going to be the literacy instruction method that they're going to be focusing on. So I agreed with that. And then for the lines 83 through 86, annual implementation of professional learning requirements shall be focused on developing appropriate evidence-based literacy instruction for renewal of a teacher certification in the teaching field of language arts or English, and this is for grades 6 through 12. So they just said there's so many certification requirements that are required for their 6 through 12 teachers. They still say it'll be annual implementation, but they asked for it to be limited to language and arts and English. And one thing I will say, we had a dialogue, and I pushed back a little bit, because one thing there are for science and social studies teachers, there is good evidence-based instruction that combines science and social studies. That uses a science lesson, but it includes this literacy instruction, because we do have this issue where we have students now that don't know how to read properly. And so if you could get your science and social studies teachers trained on those evidence-based literary practices or the science of reading, now they could be helping those students right now. But we agreed not to put it in the standards. We're just putting English and language arts in the standards. But that's something called a blended curriculum. There's some good stuff out there, and I really hope and encourage all our school systems will be looking at that type of curriculum too. And then I think that's it. The dates we had talked with Department of Education, and they talked about the ELA standards they would be rolling these out, and they are in alignment with evidence-based and literacy instruction, science of reading, and so we have the 2025 date in our bill.
Okay. If you can, Representative, let us get to some questions for you then through the bill here. And very good bill, and very well vetted. So I applaud your efforts there. Let me go to number 12. Where is 12? There you go, Chairman Duke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this. Mr. Chairman, if I may, since Representative Evans has presented the language in these amendments for consideration, would you allow me to ask questions of those amendments at this time?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, on your amendment document, on line 5, you mentioned 20% of the annual training requirements. What is that annual training requirement?
This is the decal. This is for the
I'm sorry, quantity-wise. I mean, quantifying that, how much are they, from an hour standpoint, or a days, a year, or?
We didn't get into that. I mean, both DECAL and the child care centers have agreed with that, but I don't have another way to measure that.
That's fine. And my second and final question on line 9 of your first amendment, have been deemed by the department to be proficient in such literacy training. Is the department deeming someone proficient in any area? Is that a current practice that they have that?
Well, one thing that we heard from, my understanding is from DECAL and from the child care centers, is that DECAL has already been taking they are a top-down, like for pre-K through 5, we're local control, but DECAL is kind of top-down, and they have already adopted evidence-based literacy instruction in the Department of DECAL, so that their literacy training meets those requirements.
Understand. I'm just trying to understand when we say that we're giving the department the ability to waive that requirement by deeming that someone is proficient in training, are they allowed to deem someone proficient in training today in any area? Is that a current practice?
I am not sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions number 11.
Hey, thank you for the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going off of his previous question in line 5, so if the 20% is a percentage of a time frame that we don't know, I would ask, is there a way that we can actually define that so that we understand truly what 20% would be? Because right now, if we don't know what that requirement is, it seems open-ended to me. That would be one question. The other one is on line 99. the differentiated instruction definition was removed, and I would like to just better understand why we removed that
Right.
definition.
Okay, yeah, actually, so what happened is it just got moved in the bill. So it was here, it was in one place, and then we put it in the definitions. So if you
Okay.
go back up, you'll
So just
see.
you shifted it.
Yeah, now it's on line 46 through 56.
Got it.
And I will say, we also did do an amendment just in that one definition that was made at the request of some of these literacy advocates, and that's we removed learning styles from differentiated instruction, and the subcommittee agreed with that.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no more questions about this, good job, Representative, here, and thank you for looking into literacy for us. I will entertain a motion to do pass. Representative Pear, so moved. A second? Got a second from Representative Clark. Now I will entertain your amendment and allow you to do that if you would, Representative.
All right, well, I welcome help from Ledge Council too, and if
Please,
there's anyone here
welcome.
from DeKalb or the child care group, I don't know if they want to, I welcome your help on how we can make that more measurable. If you have any suggestions, is that?
My recommendation, if you're asking that, is let's stick with what we've got here, see what works, and then we can adjust at a later date in time. It seems measurable and workable at this point in time, and I think you've dug into it. If you were good coming in the room, I'm okay with it.
Thank you, Chairman.
What we would need then is a motion to approve this amendment as presented, and then a second. So a motion to approve. Okay, that's Representative Glaze. Second? Second, Representative Wade. Over there, I see a question here. Chairman Dubnik.
Mr. Chairman, once again, with all due respect to you and your judgment, as well as to deference to the bill's author, I'm simply not comfortable with understanding how we're going to quantify this, nor if this is a precedent that we are setting in giving the department the ability to waive such requirements. And so while I am not opposed to the bill, until I can have those questions answered, I respectfully would not be in support of the amendment. So I'm just simply making that statement that I believe we need to understand what we're doing from a precedent standpoint and quantifying this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, so your concern is primarily on line 7, is that right? That the department may waive the requirements?
Yes, ma'am. Two questions. Line 5, just understanding the total amount or quantifying and somehow the annual training requirements so that I can understand what 20% of that total would be. And my second concern, again, is understanding on line 9, I guess you could say lines 7 through 9, giving the department the ability to waive that requirement. I want to understand, does the department have that ability to waive any kind of training requirements? This has nothing to do with literacy, but are they able to do that currently? So,
What I would say then, perhaps, if this is a concern, perhaps we should substitute the same language we used with the public service, the Professional Standards Commission renewal, perhaps, instead of and I welcome Ledge Council.
Let's go straight to
Okay.
him for a minute,
Okay.
if I
All right.
can interrupt you,
Okay.
Representative. Would you step to the podium, Michael, please, from Legislative Council?
Just for the perhaps in response to Chairman Dubnik's question and for the committee, the existing law, the subsection C of Code Section 20-1A-10 provides that the early care and education programs that care for children shall be licensed, commissioned annually. and all licenses and commissions issued by the department shall be subject to annual renewal by the department in accordance with procedure, standards, rules, and regulations established by the board. In effect, the board of DECAL is already responsible for kind of establishing its own standards for certification. So currently they would in effect have the ability to waive their own rules because they set their rules. So it's not something that they're not established statutorily by the General Assembly. DECAL has pretty broad authority in establishing their own rules. Thank you.
Chairman, I'm going to move on if that answered your questions. I'm going to go in order by which I see them. Number 9, Chairman Chokas.
In the interest of time, and I can see some questions about this legislation, and I'm going to ask if it would be appropriate to table this at this time and move forward, because it's getting close to 10.
Yes, we can entertain a table, I believe, but Chairman Chokas, let one other question at least be asked. Number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess if Legislative Council could come back and just respond to, if it's okay with the chairman, how many hours is required? Is it 10 hours required currently annually? If DECAL sets what they are, I guess the question to the author, would it be appropriate to say that, I think there's already requirements in there as far as like different type of training you have to do. Would it be appropriate to say the department shall set that limit instead of saying 20%, the department shall set that limit and then give them the ability to waive it? So instead of locking it at 20, let them decide, because if they've already got 60% allocated, maybe let them make that decision, but say they have to set something.
I would be amenable to that.
So to follow up, Mr. Chairman, all I would do is just say maybe the department, instead of spend 20%, will set an annual requirement for development of appropriate literacy, and that way they will continue to have that flexibility, but they shall set something in code.
And I think that we could do that's similar to the annual implementation. That's what we did with the PSC certification standards. So we could say annual, shall annually train, annually implement developmentally appropriate evidence-based literacy instruction. Ledge Council, can we ask him to come up here? To annually train.
Right.
Just leave it at that.
Representative, did DECAL ask for the 20%?
No, we asked for the 20%.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Rather than
while he's,
require teachers rather than to spend
Mr. Chairman,
there.
while he's doing that, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Or
sir.
just comment? Since the department is setting that limit, can we remove the waivable part? Because they're setting the limit, so is there a need to have a waivable requirement?
Good question. Let's do this. I'm never a person that believes moving very quickly on situations like this is good. I'm going to entertain the motion to table.
Second.
We have a second at this time, and I'm entertaining that so that we can have some discussion on what is best here, and then try to bring this back up. It has already been asked of me that if we could schedule a meeting this afternoon, members, we would attempt to do that. We have 2 other bills on here, and we're running out of time. We'd love to get to those other 2 bills also. But we have a motion and a second to table this at this time.
I only want to ask a point of order.
Okay, yes, sir.
There's a pending motion to pass. Does that need to be withdrawn?
That's a very good point, Legislative Council. We do have a pending motion to do pass.
If that motion were withdrawn, then I think you could pick up the motion to table. I'm not sure that a motion to table is going to supersede.
Motion to table.
I thought motion to table superseded.
Supersede, yeah. It does.
I'll stand down. I wanted to ask the question.
Okay, we had a motion to withdraw anyway, but let's do this. Let's stay with the expert sitting next to me. The table's gonna take the precedent here. And so we have a motion and a second to table this, to work on this some. I do see a question. Quickly, please.
It's a quick question. Only if we commit to meeting today to come back.
We cannot make any promises because rooms are full. I don't mind telling everybody that we pushed to get here this morning. We're going to make every attempt to meet today, but I can't make a guarantee so that we can come back. Oh, absolutely. I think tomorrow there could be an opportunity. Today, I do not know. So. Yes. What's that? Yes. All right. We're going to vote on the motion to table, if we can. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Representative Evans, thank you for your work. Let's do a little bit more and be prepared. I'd love to bring the other items up, but we are in session in 15 minutes. I want to give everybody time to get their office and get over there. Members, thank you very much for your efforts this morning. Pay attention to your emails for a meeting that could occur this afternoon. Thank you.